summertime down under, and what better time to talk about cold brew teas than now. So I could make a video just talking about my favorite teas to cold brew, but I thought it'd be more interesting to talk about a few teas that, well, let's just say, wouldn't be the first teas that spring to mind when considering cold brew teas. But first, what is cold brew tea? As the name suggests, it's a method of brewing tea with cold water. It's pretty much just tea leaves, cold water, pop it in the fridge for a minimum of 10 to 12 hours, and there you have it, cold brew tea. So teas such as Phoenix Honey Orchid tea, which is a Danchong oolong tea, that's one of my all-time favorites to cold brew. You get this sweet, fruity lychee flavor, followed by this slight hint of bitterness, just to remind you that you're actually drinking a tea. And the great thing is you can batch brew these ahead of time so that you always have something ready to take with you for when you're out and about. And while any and every tea out there can technically be cold brew, there are many that, at least by the sounds of it, might not make the best cold brew tea. And in this video, we're going to be trying 3 such teas. Our teas have now been cold brewed. Only took about 12 hours or so, but here we are. So we've got our smoky Lapsang Souchong, notorious DHP, and our full metal rye pu'er. First up, we are going to try the smoky Lapsang Souchong. Yeah, so the smokiness is definitely there, but it's not overpowering. Like, it's definitely not a wallop to the face. Like, I know when you hot brew this tea, that smokiness is much more distinct. This one is actually quite light. It's actually... I'm definitely getting that dried fruit kind of flavor, that dried longan flavor coming, and with a slight hint of smoke. So it's more like I guess like a smoked dry fruit. It's actually really quite interesting. Like, you don't, with a tea like this, you don't think it's going to work as a cold brew. So like smoky tea that evokes memories of like a campfire or like a fireplace, you're thinking hot brew. Like, you know, this is definitely a tea that works better as a hot brew rather than a cold brew. But I'm finding this one quite pleasant, and almost, I guess it's a much more, the smokiness is much more mellow. It's a much more mellow flavor. Compared to when you hot brew this tea. It's actually surprisingly easy to drink. A lot of times when we're brewing up the smoky Lapsang Souchong, it's a fairly divisive kind of tea. Some people, when they first drink it, absolutely love it. Others, you know, not so much because of that smokiness. As I'm drinking this, what I do find quite nice is that kind of zingy aftertaste, that zingy sensation that hits you in the back of the tongue with this tea. And it actually lingers quite long, and it's actually quite a nice, I think that adds to the refreshing feel of this tea. So you get this, you know, kind of delicate smoke combined with this dried fruit flavor, followed by this kind of light citrus zinginess that I think makes this tea a surprisingly pleasant and really easy to drink cold brew tea. So next up, we're trying the cold brewed notorious DHP. This one being a rock oolong, being a Da Hong Pao. I'm not quite sure how that rocky, minerally and slight roasted flavor, how they're going to translate to a cold brew tea. The first thing to notice is the color is surprisingly quite dark, especially when I was comparing it to the Smoky Lapsang Souchong. I thought, this one being an oolong tea, that one being a black tea, I thought that one, the Smoky Lapsang, was going to be a darker color than the DHP, but surprisingly this one turns out to be the darker color. But definitely getting that mineral characteristic. Not quite as strong as when you hot brew it. Although the thing is, without Da Hong Pao, it is quite a light style of Da Hong Pao. It's more a light medium roast Da Hong Pao, so I wasn't expecting super strong punchy flavors. But that mineral rocky characteristic is definitely coming through. Slight fruitiness, a slight roasted character. But what's interesting to note about this tea is the texture. It's quite thick and quite smooth. That I didn't expect, because as I was drinking the Smoky Lapsang, the first thing I noticed on that one was the smokiness, but the texture itself wasn't something that I immediately noticed. Like it wasn't bad, it wasn't super thin, but compared to this one, like this is actually, it has quite a thick mouthfeel. The initial flavor that you get isn't that strong. It's not something that hits you immediately. Like you drink it, and it takes a while. It takes about half a second or so before some sort of flavor registers, and that flavor is that sort of rocky mineral rock tea, kind of characteristic, that yen yun, that sort of mountain characteristic of a rock tea. That's what comes through. It takes a moment, but that's what definitely comes through. And then the smooth and thick texture of this tea. I think that's the thing that sticks out to me the most, is the texture of this tea. Now for the last one, we've got our Right Pu'er, our Full Metal Right Pu'er cold brew tea. Now, this one is the one that I'm actually most curious to try, because Right Pu'er is not something that immediately comes to mind when I'm thinking cold brew tea. The sort of dark, earthy flavors of this, like to me, it doesn't, kind of gel, with cold brew. And I'm actually feeling a little bit, just within my body, like I'm just feeling a little bit resistant in trying this. But at the same time, I'm also really curious to see how this one turns out. And let's see, and we'll see how it goes. Cold brew Right Pu'er. It's definitely not as bad as I thought it was going to be. In fact, it's actually quite nice, surprisingly. Very smooth, just a light earthiness with this, but once again, it's the texture of this tea that's really hitting me the most. That thick buttery texture is there. With the Right Pu'er, when you're cold brewing it, maybe 12 hours might not be enough. This one might be one where you'd have to cold brew for much longer, I think. It could be partly also, the leaves look like they have started to kind of come apart, but maybe it's because a lot of leaves are kind of clumped together. It takes a little bit longer for the leaves to come apart, for the water to get in and to start extracting those flavors. That could be partly the reason why this one is a little light. Another reason may also be with certain flavors within a Right Pu'er, like with those stronger, earthier flavors, probably requires water of a higher temperature to be able to extract that. So with just cold water, you either need a really, really long time, or it just potentially may not be able to extract those stronger, deeper compounds. That being said, it's okay, but it's not. I think with this one here, it's not one that I would recommend to cold brew. Like it's not. By all means, if this is all you had and you wanted to, try cold brew and you wanted something that's refreshing to drink. You want something that you could batch brew ahead of time to take with you the next day. When you're going out and about, it's a suitable option. Like it doesn't, as I said, it doesn't taste bad, but it's not mind blowing either. So we've got some interesting results here, but I don't think any of these three would overtake my current favorite oolong and black teas when it comes to cold brewing. But of the three though, I think I'd be willing to try the Smoky Lapsang and the Notorious DHP again as a cold brew if I want, if I wanted just a bit of variety. If you put a gun to my head and I had to pick one as the winner, of the three, I would actually probably go with the Smoky Lapsang Souchong, because I find that provided the most interesting flavor when it came to these three cold brews. The sort of light smokiness followed by that kind of dry fruit flavor, and then that kind of zingy, slightly sour, acidic aftertaste. That combined together, as a cold drink, was something that was really refreshing, and actually something that I would probably genuinely want to try again and want to actually brew again as a cold brew. The Raipu'ua, while it's not as bad as I was, kind of imagining it in my head, wasn't anything special either. This just kind of confirmed my suspicions earlier that Raipu'ua is definitely much better as a hot brew. Anyway, so that's the end of our video today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Have you tried cold brewing your favorite teas before? And was there a cold brew tea that genuinely surprised you in one way or another? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.